Hey, everybody, Wes Legg here, checking in with another week of a Wellness Minute with Wes. And tonight I'm bringing on a special guest. Before we get to my guest, I'm sure many of you have heard, if you haven't if you've been on social media, any at all, in the last 2 or 3 months, you've seen there's a big craze, and all of a sudden we're being bombarded with all these ads with CBD oil. And this CBD oil is going to be huge this year in 2019. I forget the astronomical numbers that they're touting as far as business and how much of this stuff we're going to be seeing this year. It's really going to be a big thing. And I just happen to be partnered with a company, as well as the guest that I'm going to be bringing on here, that is coming out with a revolutionary new product. It's actually a patch, a CBD oil patch. And Dennis, my guest, has actually been able to get a hold of one of these, and he's used it for a couple of days, and he's going to share his experience and what he's what he's learned about it with you, and let us know what he knows when it's going to become available. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest. He's from Enid, Oklahoma, Dennis McKinzie. Welcome to Wellness Minute with Wes, Dennis.
Hey, Wes, glad to be here. I'm looking forward to spending a little time with you this evening.
Dennis, just before we get started into your story, into your testimony, give us a little bit about yourself. Tell the folks a little bit about, I know you're from Enid, Oklahoma, what you do for a living, maybe what your hobbies are.
Sure. I've lived in Enid most of my life. My wife, Robin, and I have been married 38 years now. We're going on 38 years. We've got 3 sons, and 2 of those sons have families of their own. I've got one unmarried son that is, all 3 of my sons are in Enid with us now. We've had them in different parts of the world and parts of the state and in the United States. But anyway, we are a family that loves to do things together. We typically get together after church every Sunday and have dinner together, and all the 4 grandkids are with us. So anyway, we enjoy family and having a lot of fun that way. I was a UPS driver for 20 years and retired from UPS, and now I am in the gas side of the oil and gas industry and take care of some of the electronics on the equipment out there. And then I also have a little part-time business that I enjoy sharing products that CJ International offers.
Awesome. So I mentioned the CBD patch. I'll let you elaborate a little bit more, but we both attended an event. It's called New Year event, the first of the year, and got to see the introduction, or actually the initial release of the CBD patch. Maybe you could elaborate on what the patch is, maybe show us what it looks like. And then if you want to, just proceed into the results that you've experienced. I know you said you used the patch for 3 days.
You bet. I'd be glad to do that, Wes. Just like you said, that we went to a New Year, New You event, which qualified us to be able to, we bought some product and we're able to qualify to get the patch sent out as a kind of a sample to some of the folks in Zija to experience it and to be able to give them a little feedback on that. And so the patch came in a nice little package. I think many of you might have seen that. Came with a thank you card and with a little bit of information about the patch on the back. And then the patch actually looks like this. And the size of it, it's a little bit deceiving. It's not very big. I mean, it could literally fit on your wrist or the different places of the body that they recommend. And actually, they recommend for wellness, they recommend the inside of your wrist, the inside of a thigh, the underside of your forearm, even in the base of your neck, or if you have an issue with pain or something, soreness or something like that, you can actually apply it right to that area. Some of the things that I had learned about the CBD oil and the patch were just really interesting, and I couldn't wait to try it. But we can maybe talk a little bit about that later, but just going right straight into my story is that once we received the patch, I tried 3 of them. My wife tried 2, and then we kept one to be able to show people what they look like as we share it. So backing up a little bit, I had an injury to my rib cage on my right side. It was a self-inflicted injury. It's a little embarrassing, so I won't go into the details of that. But it was self-inflicted. However, whether it was self-inflicted or not, it was a real deal. I mean, I fell hard on that side, and I thought I broke something. I didn't. I went ahead and got it x-rayed about a week later or so, and they said, no, it's just a deep, deep bruise. You tore some ligaments and cartilage and bruised it real bad. So any of you that's ever had a rib injury, I didn't realize how painful it was. And that first week, it was difficult to sneeze or to cough or to laugh, all of those things that you take for granted, and it was rough. And what was also really tough is that comfort came from sitting and standing, but laying down, didn't matter what position you tried to get in, it was painful. Anyway, got the patches. Mine went directly on the rib cage. That's where I put mine. And that first 24-hour period, it was, I've heard this word used before in other testimonies. It's subtle at first. And I did notice in the very beginning, probably the first 5 or 10 minutes, I felt kind of a warmth. I don't know if I would have noticed that if I weren't looking for it, but it was just a kind of a warm feeling. And I didn't really notice it too much after that. It was an initial thing. Probably I put that patch on in the evening, probably 6:30, something like that. I go to bed early because I get up early. So that evening I went to bed, and I noticed right away that the positioning of trying to get comfortable in bed was.
Well, we got a freeze action. I'm pretty sure that is on my end on the internet. So we'll hang tight here. Dennis will be right back and continue to tell his story about the rib injury or the illness or the bruise. And there you go, Dennis. You're back. So you were talking about the position. You then noticed you were able to lay in pretty much any position now. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yes, and I noticed that first night I was a little more comfortable. That sharp pain turned into a more manageable dull pain, and I did sleep better that night. So anyway, going into the third patch, each night, the second night was even better. I put another patch on after that 24-hour period. That night, the pain was even more manageable, and that night I slept like a baby. That was a good sleep that night. And then the third day was much of the same. Very manageable, very dull. Pain was there, but it was dull and it was manageable. Not that sharp, it's like a knife twisting in your side.
Right. Let me ask you, so obviously you've seen a relief in pain. Did your wife make any comments as to what she felt or what she experienced when she used it?
Well,
she used it for 2 days, right?
We talked about that a little bit. She had no issues, and my wife and I, we've both been on the Super Mix and XM Plus for about 16 months now, and we don't miss a day. And we also take the Prime and Triotic. So she didn't have any noticeable issues that she was trying to address. I think that maybe the wellness part of it, maybe more. I know some people say they experience cognitive issues that have been improved and things like that, but for her, it wasn't a drastic thing like it was for me.
Awesome. So the patch, you wore the patch to bed at night. Did it stay on? Did it stick on? Did you take a shower with the patch on? Because that was one of the questions that I had. Will the patch still remain stuck when I take a shower?
I did take a shower with the patch on, and it stayed on. It had no issues at all. It didn't try to peel off on the corners or anything. It stayed the whole time. In fact, the first one I kept on for 35 hours because I heard Truman Irving's testimony of how he felt like his helped his neuropathy all the way into about 35 hours. That wasn't the case for me. I needed one sooner than that. But even after that 35 hours, it still was on, no problem.
Well, I wanted to ask you, there's another question. I wore patches to help me quit smoking. That's the only experience that I ever had with the transdermal. But, this is totally off the cuff, totally different. I experienced nightmares. I experienced a terrible taste in my mouth when I wore those patches. Did you taste it? Any bitterness or taste or any side effects from wearing a patch?
Not at all. It was like the only way that I even knew that patch was there is that I was personally getting some results from it. And I will say that not only was the pain lessened from a intense pain to a dull pain, and not only did I sleep well, but I discussed this with my wife. It was my well-being, my attitude. I don't know how to describe it. Again, it was subtle, but it was like a smooth, just a golden feeling. It was like your attitude was
It was
better.
really calm. You know,
Well,
I do know from what I've read about the product. Now, this product will be coming out at the end of March. I'm not sure when it will be available to us as distributors for customers. I believe that'll probably be the last week of March, first week of April. It has less than 0.3% of THC in it. And that's going to pose me with another question to you, Dennis, because I know, I'll let you explain this. You took the initiative to go ahead and get a urinalysis test done. And so you can share with us your results. But I do know that I think Dr. Plant has come forward and said, we can't promise anything because it's all based on how you're tested and what they're looking for. But it's got less than 0.3% of THC in it. So, take it up with your doctor or with your employer before you start using the patch to begin with to kind of cover yourself. But in the position you're in, a UPS driver, correct? Or no, that's what you were. Now you're an inspector, but I'm sure that you get pulled for random drug tests. So go ahead and share what you did.
well, what I did, Wes, is I took it upon myself after having that patch, 3 different patches over 72 hours. And I went down to a local drug screening company, and I paid the money out of my pocket to have a 5-tier test run. They run for marijuana, THC, cocaine, amphetamines, opioids, and PCP. And for my experience with having not a long residual period of time, sorry about the cuckoo clock, but it was at least 72 hours, and that stays in your system. They say if you trigger a THC, that it'll stay in your system 30 days, sometimes longer. But everything that I had came out negative. It was all negative. So that's a big deal. I actually have my story in a copy of that. Available email. I would recommend that if you are in the same position I am, to just have it done. I mean, if you have a long weekend, 3 days, 4 days, you're on vacation, try the patch and go down and pay the $50 or whatever and have it tested for your own peace of mind, So
Yeah, again, I think if you take it up with your doctor or your employer too, there's a way around that too, that you can get it tested so that you don't get caught. But I don't think it's going to be an issue because we got less than 0.3% of THC. But they suggest or recommend that. So, hey, I want to close this down, but I appreciate you sharing your story and your testimony. Any last words that you would like to leave with those that might be interested, how they can reach out to you for one, and for two, maybe your recommendation for the CBD oil patch. I mean, it is much better and more effective than the oil because oil doesn't stay in your system very long. With a transdermal patch, will give you a sustained feed over the course of a 24-hour period. So that's the big edge and the big advantage of the patch. So I'm going to let you close that out. Go ahead and share any recommendation that you'd have for the folks watching. And I appreciate you so much, Dennis, for coming forward and sharing your story.
That's my pleasure. Yeah, I would like to say that what I have learned is really interesting, and the fact that, and you had mentioned that the percentage or the bioavailability or the percentage that actually absorbs into our system with the drops is very small. It's 6 to 8% with a 20-minute half-life. And that just simply means that 8% would turn into 4% after 20 minutes and then 2% after another 20. So you can see that after a couple of hours, if you still have an issue with whatever pain or whatever you're trying to resolve, you have to take those drops again. I have heard that they are not very tasty, that they're not very good taste. And the other thing is that has to go through your digestive system and through your liver before it enters your bloodstream. Whereas the 24-hour transdermal patch goes through your skin and into your bloodstream. And I understand that it's easier on the liver, and that's why they can recommend it for even children to take. And another thing that I had heard that was really interesting is that some people, friends of ours, give it to their loved ones that are in a nursing home. And so someone has to be on a schedule to get that to them. They cannot wait for this patch to come out, the transdermal square, to be able to place that on their loved one. And 24 hours, they don't have to worry about that schedule anymore or the taste, trying to get it in them. So that's a huge thing. So like you said earlier, this is a business that's been projected by Forbes and 3 other different magazines or articles that it was 700 million. The $700 million that it did last year alone, and it's projected to do as much as 18 to 20 billion by the year 2020. That's just in a couple of short years with a 700% growth rate. That's an amazing thing. And so if somebody's interested in doing this as possibly a business with this Intune, a Mayo CBD transdermal 24-hour square, they can get a hold of either one of us. You can find me on Facebook at Dennis McKinzie, McKinzie, or liveitforward@gmail.com. Just get a hold of you, get a hold of me. We'd love to talk to you about it.
Thanks, Dennis. And closing it down, like you said, it's a great business opportunity, but something else to keep in mind, if you do happen to start using the patch, just simply sharing with other people, there is a plan in place, an opportunity in place that if you get enough other people referred, your product will be paid for. If you want to pursue it as a business and make an additional income, you can, but there is a way that your patch could actually be paid for by simply sharing what's really, I believe, going to help a lot of people. Thanks again, Dennis. I appreciate your time this evening on Wellness Minute with Wes, and we'll be talking again real soon. Have a good evening, everybody.